Welcome to the National Newspaper
As
Publishers
named, you
Association's
called yourself a
Let It Be
nationalist.
Known.
Some people saw that as emboldening white nationalists. Now people are also
I don't know
saying
why you'd
that
say
the
that. That's
president.
such a racist
There are
question.
some people.
The same thing with April Ryan. I watch her get up. I mean, you talk about somebody that's a loser. She doesn't know what the hell she's doing.
Are you going to include the Congressional Black Caucus and the Congressional
Well, I
Hispanic
would.
Caucus?
I tell you what. Do you want to
as well
set
as
up the
on
meeting?
city-
Do you want to set up the meeting?
No.
Are they friends of
I'm
yours?
just a reporter.
No, get
So he tweeted this late on Friday night. He said, LeBron James was just interviewed by the dumbest man on television, Don Lemon. He made LeBron look smart, which isn't easy to do. I like Mike.
What a stupid.
That is the problem today. The National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ, has set off a firestorm of controversy by inviting the twice impeached and 4 times indicted, 34-time convicted felon Donald Trump to its annual convention. The decision has divided the community of Black and minority journalists and elicited strong reaction from within NABJ itself. Defenders of the move include high-profile members, though, like Jamel Hill and Simone Sanders Townsend. They argue that engaging with Trump offers an opportunity for rigorous questioning and transparency. They believe that such encounters can help illuminate key issues and hold public figures accountable. Conversely, many NABJ members and supporters are deeply opposed to this decision to invite Trump. Convention co-chair Karen Attiah has resigned in protest, citing a lack of consultation and her disagreement with the choice. Prominent journalists like April Ryan and Yamiche Alcindor have also voiced their concerns, asserting that Trump's participation contradicts NABJ's values and could undermine the organization's mission to advocate for marginalized communities. Roland Martin noted that no Black men were named to the panel. And further, Roland highlighted the unseriousness of NABJ leadership by selecting Fox News personality and Trump apologist Harris Faulkner to moderate the panel. So now we're going to talk to NABJ members. We got Dawn Montgomery, we got Katia Woods, and of course, Lauren Burke. Listen, this is first and foremost, Lauren, you just let's just go right to the throat of this. You just shared a tweet a few moments ago, a big protest now because of this in Chicago. What's going on,
Sure.
Lauren?
What's going on is trying to dial us in for my mother. What's going on
Hi,
really
Mom.
is that
I see said, hey, mom.
what's going on is basically that all of that is true with regard to what Simone and some of the folks that want this to happen. You know, wow, it's a great idea to have Donald Trump on. Yeah, I get that. The problem is you have Harris Faulkner and somebody from Semaphore, a site that was created, 2 years ago, doing the questioning. And I would argue that the only true chance of anything coming out of this that's of value is Rachel Scott of ABC. That's it. I mean, the idea that you could have Harris Faulkner as one of the panelists and get anything out of this other than PR games for Donald Trump is completely ridiculous. In fact, the fact that Harris Faulkner is included would tell you that NABJ made some sort of a deal in the background with Fox News that she would be on this panel so that he would get an easy time of it, because as we all know, Fox News lost a $787 million defamation case for lying on behalf of Donald Trump. Everybody knows that. Not just Black journalists, the entire country knows that. So the fact, I don't have any problem with him coming. I think that he should be invited just as any other presidential candidate. But we don't live in a world of fantasy where we don't know what this person stands for. He stands for racism. He talks on a daily basis about how brown folks coming across that Mexican border are all criminals and rapists. He says this on a daily basis. So this is not a regular sit down. This is not a regular person. We live in an era that represents a return to anti-Blackness. We're talking about DEI all the time. We have a Supreme Court that struck Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act and then affirmative action. Everyone knows that. So within that context, this makes no sense.
So, Katia, before we unleash Dawn, but Katia, for instance, Mike V is saying I hope they ask him about reparations. They can ask him about reparations. They can ask him about Black Lives, and he will tell you what he probably thinks you want to hear. I mean, can you take anything at face value, Katia?
No, because he's a serial liar. When you are a serial liar, there is no truth, there is no middle ground. And the thing about it is, he's got whatever apologies, whatever platitudes he's going to make, he's going to turn around at his next rally and take them all back and say that he never did. And all his minions, all his cult members are going to buy in and going to say that once again, the media manipulated the situation. And I would feel a little bit better, like my colleagues have said, if we had some stronger moderators. But I'm so, is she even a member of NABJ,
Yeah, I
her?
was going to ask that question too.
That's
Is
the
she even a
question.
member?
Yeah, Dawn, do you know if she's a member?
Who are we talking about? Harris?
Harris Faulkner. Yes.
Far as I know, probably not. The only thing that I've seen is that she's been a part of a panel before at NABJ, but being a part of a panel and actually being an active member to understand the community is two different things.
Yeah.
I think the frustration that I'm seeing is, yes, this is a both and situation, and I need our community to be a little more open to a both and situation. But to Lauren's point, the type of security you're gonna have to have now, you're opening this up to where this man is physically coming to the location where majority of us are going to be. That even though he's going to leave the site eventually, on Wednesday and go on about his business, that doesn't mean that his type of people wouldn't possibly show up to interrupt whatever else we have going on. I think the other thing about this is that it's very frustrating, to Roland's point, that there wasn't a Black man included in the conversation, to bring some things to the forefront. But I think the other thing about this is how, and I just saw her profile posted, Tia
Yeah.
Mitchell. I want to give Tia Mitchell first and foremost, and this is just me personally. I live in Metro Atlanta. I'm in Decatur. I used to work at the Atlanta Voice, so I've had to work with the AJC here and there. I want to give her kudos for even just stepping up to say that she was a part of that call to make that happen, because she's also on the political task force. But I also want to just kind of say, from a calm standpoint, I don't think she was prepared for the reaction that was about to happen. I think the organization
Obviously not.
dropped the ball on that. And I think that the organization as a whole should have been more supportive of her, because as of right now, the only other person that I've seen in support of her are just actual like NABJ members or panelists that have been a part of some bigger things that happen at the convention. But I want to give credit to her editor-in-chief, Leroy Chapman from the AJC, who has already stated that he's in support of, making sure that the invitation is open to all people who are running for president. But that also shows that she has security with her employer. And I think that for a lot of us that are Black journalists in this particular space, there are a lot more people that are freelancers, or a lot more people that are in newsrooms that can't afford to kind of speak up and say that they were a part of this decision making. I'm pretty sure that there were people on the board who were a part of this decision making. I'm pretty sure that the president was, a part of this decision making, of course, which we actually have seen that they have put out some type of video response to him, and everyone's shutting that down because it's not actually addressing the concerns of the members. But to me, I want to just make sure here that we're not internally doing the same things that we're expecting Trump and his people to do to our people by doing that to our people as well in response to this. But I do think that they should have had some type of comms professional come in when the invitations were being given out, and waiting on the acceptance of the invitations to really kind of go through the different scenarios of what could actually happen in response to this, because I don't think that they were prepared as an organization to address this.
Well, Anthony Tillman says, yeah, PR definitely failed. Now, in the case of Tia Mitchell, Lauren, I mean, she was swinging for the fences all throughout the night at folks on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, the heat got a little bit too much, and blocked her. She blocked her tweets. This is not what membership deserves, right?
Well, obviously, if you're going to put the president of the United States, who we all know is shall we say, racially challenged, or somebody who is basically, I think we can define him as a racist at this point. This is the guy that got up in 2016 and upon announcing he was in the race, called Mexicans rapists and criminals, and does that, like I said, on a daily basis. So I'm not sure why anybody is shocked that a Black organization having him on stage with a Fox News personality. See, none of this, I think, would have been a problem if the panelists are three people who you know are going to bring some tough questioning. So if it's
Mhm.
Michael Harriot and Roland Martin and Rachel Scott, I don't think we're having a discussion at all. In fact, the discussion
Right.
would have probably been, I can't wait to get there to see those questions coming in, right? The
Yeah,
Right.
problem
I agree,
is
Lauren.
that the problem is Harris Faulkner, which is a gigantic problem, okay? Because Fox
Trump
News, first of
apologist.
all, at some point we have to decide as journalists what is journalism, which I know no news organization and nobody wants to actually define, because the First Amendment effectively says that anybody who self says they're a journalist is a journalist. But I have a problem with Harris Faulkner at a news organization that is effectively a PR firm for Donald Trump and MAGA Republicanism, acting as if she's going to walk into NABJ and ask tough questions, which we all know that that's not going to happen. Okay, so there's that. Then you've got the problem of Semaphore, which is the Ben Smith project that just came out of nowhere in 2022. The journalist they happen to have selected is the same one who wrote a very interesting piece of the barbershop gathering with the Black Republicans in Philly. Well, that
Correct.
wasn't exactly what I would define as hard-hitting journalism. But here's my thing. If there was a broader discussion within the leadership of NABJ, that the questioners would have been tougher. I don't think this is a discussion. I'm not in favor of this idea of, quote,
Mhm.
he shouldn't be platformed. That for me is code for, I don't like his views, and therefore I'm stepping out of the role of journalist and into opinion and saying that
There you
because
go.
up there that I don't like, we shouldn't be
Hmm.
platforming him. I think
Hmm.
that's not what the journalistic mission should be. So Tia, I'm sure is having a, she's having a tough time, but one would think that she would have been aware that this could happen. Now, it would be interesting to know how many people were involved in this decision. It comes out late last night. Doggone
Yeah.
well, they were talking to the Trump people for days. So it's interesting that this drops out of nowhere last night, less than 48
Well,
hours before it happened.
I think
yeah, exactly.
I
Katia.
just wanted.
So
Go ahead, Stacy. I'm
yes.
sorry.
So Anthony says, and he's right. I mean, Trump had at several times has gotten invited, not shown up. He says, what prompted his sudden change of heart to attend now, and why the delay in notifying everyone until the last minute, 9 o'clock last night, Katia, especially without consulting the local chapter. That sounds like it's a problem, Katia.
Well, we know, but because right now our bags are packed, our tickets are punched. And for a lot of these journalists, it's already a hardship to go to convention. And if you're flying, Frontier, Spirit, no shade to anybody, you get in, you fit in how you get in. You're not going to get, the refunds on the tickets and the hotel. That ship has sailed. You know what I mean? Especially if you're a young journalist coming from a super small market. So you already are committed. If you are, an older journalist and you're not on a panel, you're not leading a committee, then, you can say, deuces and I'll see you next year. I think what my colleagues have stated so beautifully is the fact is if we're going to do it, then let's have journalists. And when one of the moderators literally has on her IG and on her various different social media selfies, she's hanging out at Mar-a-Lago, it tells you all. And also, Harris has a habit when people, as a Black woman, we don't all have to agree because we are not a monolith, sits there in silence while people are saying racist, xenophobic, and sexist things. How in the world is she going to advocate in a room that is supposed to be a safe space, is supposed to be a room where we are uplifting? And also, what are we saying to younger journalists when we have these types of softballers in the room about the profession? I keep saying this. We can't be mad at younger people when the older people are acting a whole plum fool. And I feel like
Right.
Harris is a plum example of that. I would have loved to have seen, some of the more seasoned veteran journalists. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be someone from ABC News, but somebody that has been doing this work and knows how to ask Mr. Trump these questions and hold him accountable. I do not want our convention to be a part of his PR clip. And to answer
Well,
Anthony's
it's
question,
already that way though, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah, the statement he
because
put out.
Dawn, he tweeted out,
Yeah.
his people tweeted out that he's been the most effective president for Black America
Yeah,
ever,
and
et
I
cetera,
think
et
and I
cetera.
think that should be a part of the line of questioning here. Like, if they're not going to change the panelists because it's a little too late to try to find somebody to fill in or do whatever, right? Or switch some things up or to add some more depth to this conversation. I think I think in handling that, right, there's other ways that they can kind of correct this wrong, right? And it's not going to be a complete correction, but it's going to be somewhat of a band-aid. And it's going to be a very loose band-aid because it's probably not going to stick. Because as far as I'm concerned, as a member, over the past 4 to 5 years, and maybe even longer than that, every year, either before the convention or during the convention or after convention, there's some shit going on. Let me just say that, right? Let's start there. Number two, I feel like, and to Katia's point, I understand that people can't cancel and they cannot not show up, right? But you can also choose not to physically go to this particular thing. There are tens to 15 other panels, right, that are actually happening. But also we have to remember that in the event of not going, right, we're still probably going to have to be somewhat submissive to the security protocols, right? Just because this person is in the building. And I think that was the biggest thing for me was inviting him and then inviting him into where we are or where we're going to be. Like, that was the kind of like the frustration for me. So I don't really kind of understand how they're going to move forward. But I do know if people are protesting physically or in person, do it as safely as you can. I will say, if you're not going to attend, then it's okay for you not to attend, and that's a silent protest in itself. Because the less people that are in that room, probably the better. Just because all he will have is just the journalists that are interviewing him, or the few people that'll show up that want to get some sound bites for themselves for their outlets. And then there's that Saturday board meeting. There's that Saturday board meeting where a lot of people missed out on going to that because they're partying Friday night. And to each his own, like, I'm not knocking that, but just be prepared. I think it was Ernest Owens who said last night in the Twitter space for Philadelphia's NABJ chapter. I think they're separate now. Like, right? I don't think you can say them in conjunction, but
No,
and I
they
support
are
them
separate.
100%. I will say that. But he brought up a good point. There's other ways that you can raise your concerns, but this is going to come directly from the members. So there's a lot of outside noise that's drowning out the actual concerns of the members who want to propose something to these people that are in leadership. Because yes, we need to know Tia can't be the only person that's vouching for this thing, even though she was the first person to say, I was a part of that call, I'm on the political task force, this was a decision that we've done, for every general election, and inviting both sides. Okay, cool, but who else is involved?
No, I
Well,
agree. I think it's, I'm sorry, not to cut you off. I
go
think,
ahead. No.
number one, we've been saying that the issue we're having this board meeting on a Saturday is problematic. It should be at the beginning of convention before other
Yeah, I
programming
agree.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is, yes, we know Philadelphia is a whole telenovela, and we could dedicate a whole show to that being here in Philly. But at the end of the day, is I do think that we have a lot of people commenting on this that aren't members, that aren't doing the work. And while I don't agree with what's going on, we cannot have progress and we cannot have correction if we're all staying home. Some of us need to be in the building, and we need to engage leadership. We need to have these conversations because, again, um, those of us that are more established, we're doing this also for the next generation of journalists. At least I am. It is all about creating a better working environment. It is about understanding that we are right now in a very precarious state in journalism. And that means leadership, who many of them are broadcast journalists, need to understand that the field looks a little bit different if you're a freelancer, if you're an independent journalist, if you're a print journalist, and the list goes down the line. So I do need us, and I understand everybody can, I'm all for having a good time, but show up at that board meeting. Drink your coffee, do what you did in college, put on your comfy clothes, and show up and engage leadership and have that conversation if you don't like what's going on. You can't scream from outside of the building when the fire is inside. You
That
gotta
part.
engage, you know?
Well,
That
Lauren,
part.
the someone tweeted, and I can't find the tweet. There's so many tweets. I mean, we've all night long and all day long. But someone tweeted, listen, first of all, you bring in these television journalists. They're not even, television personalities really, right? But you are a trade association. So this is not really about um, trying to get the big interview get. This is supposed to be about pretty much for NABJ. Most members refer to it as like a family reunion. It's a job and career fair. They have panels to enhance what you're doing. So the idea that all of a sudden you want some real journalism at this conference, it just again it flies in the face of what a lot of people really expect, and why people are upset. You bring in this man who has this history of berating black journalists, particularly women. Ernest, you got what's his last name? Owens, his last name, Ernest. Yeah, Owens.
Ernest Owens,
Um,
yeah. Mhm.
he is so disgusted from somebody from his community, the black and LGBTQ community, and how Trump and how he feels like the organization had previously treated folks in his community. So you at what point, Lauren, do they take into account? Let's check in on the membership, because this should be more about membership than even if it was Kamala Harris.
That part.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I'm a member of NAPJ. I think that it is for the organization, whatever organization you may have, to define what the mission of the organization is. Obviously, NABJ is a 501. Their conferences tend to me a little bit, in my view, not particularly connected with the moment that we're in. And for example, we're in a moment in journalism now where so many business models are failing. People are out of jobs. People are having trouble figuring out how content can make money. To me, so much of these conventions should be directed on that mission. The other thing that
Mhm.
comes to mind on that note is that, it is the National Association of Black Journalists. Okay. I do think it would be unheard of for APAC to have their convention, and I've been to several APAC conventions, and platform somebody who's an anti-Semite in the name of, oh, let's listen to all views. Now, of course, they're not a journalistic organization, but I dare say at all the women's events I've been to, I don't think we would put a misogynist figure on stage and then say, okay, well, we got to listen to the views of somebody and just see how this goes. I mean, Black people in this country have a special history. Black journalism has a special history. And that typically has been connected to protection of the community. And just the entire notion of inviting somebody to talk with on a so-called journalistic mission to find out what exactly, I'm not sure, and then have on stage someone that we all know is not going to be in line with that general mission of journalism, whether it's black or white, makes no sense. But
Right.
it sounds like to me, after sort of looking at this entire situation, that NABJ needs to have a come to Jesus as to what exactly the mission of NABJ is.
Mhm.
Because again, Donald Trump is not a stranger to us. This man broke into politics, effectively denying where our first black president was born, and
Mhm.
denying whether or not his grades at Harvard were legit. This guy is a racist. We know that. We know about the Central Park Five. We know about his father and DOJ. We know all of these things. So I'm just a little bit confused as to why any black organization would have any sort of confusion, but particularly a journalistic one. This is what we
Yeah.
do every day: analyze public policy, the decisions that people make, where they're coming from. And you're putting on stage Semaphore, a white owned. That's my other problem. No black owned media up there. No black owned
Yeah.
media up there. We're in
Yeah.
Chicago. We're in Chicago. You don't have anybody from the Chicago
Yep.
Defender. You don't have Jesse Jackson's daughter that could show up from her radio station. This is black
That
owned
part.
media that should be featured. So
Yes,
obviously,
yes.
there was a conversation, right, that happened, and nobody is going to convince me it didn't happen. That Fox News, of course, the Trump people wanted Fox News on stage. Why is NABJ agreeing to that? Why
Right.
are they agreeing to that? So there's a broader mission question here that is glaring that needs to be answered.
Yeah. And look, Katia, we've seen now the NABJ, the co-chair of the convention. She, I should say, she steps down. There's calls now for the president, Mr. Lemon, um, to be removed. We see even people like Wendell Pierce, as you see right here, and he mentions Chicago Defender, the Pittsburgh Courier, Louisiana Weekly, California Eagle, Afro, Soldiers Without a Sword. Um, NABJ obviously did not think this through.
Oh, of course not. I mean, it's like Lauren said. How are you in Chicago and you don't have anybody, the home of Ebony, the home of Jet, the Chicago Defender, and you don't have anybody from any of these outlets in the building? We have spun our needles talking about how Black press was treated at the what seems to be now the only presidential debate, right? We did a whole soliloquy about that, only
And
to come back
NABJ,
and
by the way, was silent, Katia.
yeah, only to come back and participate in the foolery. And again, we are not at the service of Fox News. We are at the service, first and foremost, to our members. And for if he wants to come speak to membership and spout his foolery, then we should have pushed back and said, no, Harris Faulkner cannot be a part of that because we're already starting off on a low blow if she's on there. We're already going to look even more crazy. And again, Harris has been out here tweeting like this is some kumbaya, like she is, part of the fold. And again, I ask somebody, please do the research. Is she even a member? And if she's not, then why is she acting or perpetuating the image like she's in the family when she's not? She's not even a play cousin.
So we did reach out, by the way, to Takuma Robach, the managing editor at the Defender. He's in transit now. We probably will speak to him at some point really soon. But Dawn, um, listen, let's face it. No matter what happens on Wednesday, no matter what happens, Donald Trump will have campaign material, campaign ad material, won't he?
Of course he will, and he will spend this like he's already done. His group has already put out something, where those that's where the first line of questioning needs to come from, literally from that messaging that they've already put out that's lies. Like just go ahead and just knock out the first 3 or 4 questions right there. And I think the other part of this that seems to be, somewhat the elephant in the room that we're actually addressing, like give a shout out to Black press and how we are always on top of our shit, to be honest with you, is that in order to kind of understand the membership, you actually got to understand the actual people, right? And there are a lot more young people that are actively trying to be a part of this organization and find ways to be a part of the decision making, right? And in light of people actually protesting the president of NABJ, there's been a call for him to step down, to resign. You've got people like Travell Anderson. They ran a really great campaign to be president, but because you have some of the old
That
guard
part,
of this organization
that part.
that wasn't welcome or open to seeing something different happen in this organization, I guarantee you Travell would have been like, yeah, no, we can't let that happen, right? And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this has happened. Now we're giving this guy ammunition. Now we're actually showing where we are. We're actually giving them access to us and all of the things. The other thing that needs to be talked about is how do we protect ourselves? How do we now go about protecting each other or finding ways to be there for each other? Because like you said, it's going to happen. It's like they're going to have this man there. So what are the next steps? What is the plan? I know as of right now, if NABJ doesn't do a better job at responding to some of the concerns and keeping I'm not even gonna say keeping the board members quiet. The board members need to speak up. Who's on the board that was a part of this decision? Calling all of those people out and getting them to put out some type of response, because even to me, you put this out this is me coming as a comms professional. You're putting this out at 9 p.m., right? You expected nobody to see this until the next morning, to be honest with you. You expected, and those of us who work in journalism round the clock, we were gonna catch that anyway because we got to check our email before we even try to lay down. You know what I'm saying? And so,
That part.
to me, I think the biggest thing was actually seeing that response come out, the initial reaction, and then seeing what they had already put out before NABJ made the announcement, which meant NABJ should have been prepared. The organization should have been prepared to put out a counter statement to what
Mhm.
he and his team and his campaign group had to put out, to kind of like somewhat mitigate this, like try to get it a little bit more balanced or what have you. And I just think it's a bit frustrating. And I see Takuma's in here now, so
Yeah,
I
Takuma
will
has
yield my
joined
time
us.
and space to him so that he can have an opportunity to talk on this as well.
Yeah, Takuma, thanks for joining us on such short notice. The Chicago Defender, as we talked about, is among the black papers that are not uh, included here. Talk about what's going on in Chicago and what's it like.
Well, I would tell you among the rank and file members, there's a lot of disgust about it. And my feelings on it, as again, I alluded to this in a tweet that I sent out, that those of us who are in Black media, who are in the business of advocacy journalism, I just find the decision to have Trump a part of this convention is just, I'm repulsed by it. I think it's terrible. And it's because we're platforming and normalizing someone who has a reputation again for espousing racist, negative, discriminatory views, someone who's aligned with stakeholders who want to send this country back to plantation times. So, how can I, in good conscience, as the head of a historical Black newspaper, give voice or even want to invite someone like this, and much less if you're a mainstream organization, being aware of your constituency and even the local history in Chicago with regards to Trump as well. The optics of this are bad. And as I've said in another interview, NABJ has been, instrumental in my career. I disparage the decision. I know leadership works hard to put on a great convention, but this decision, I'm appalled.
You're not feeling it at all. Now, Lauren, so folks are saying, okay, you should give platform. He's a presidential candidate. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but this is a guy we know his history. What do they hope to achieve? We look. We could even in a 90-minute debate, they couldn't get a factual answer from him. What do they hope to achieve other than a photo op?
Well, we couldn't get a factual answer from him at the last debate on the 27th of June because CNN decided to agree with the Trump campaign to not fact check. So that was the first crazy thing that happened. And again, not just for NABJ, but journalism as a whole, we need to decide what the mission is. Because if the mission is not protecting the truth, if the mission is not questioning pathological liars, if the mission isn't fighting disinfo and misinfo, then what exactly is the mission of journalism? And so once that happens, where we're backseating the truth and we're backseating facts, that's problematic. And to your question, we all know who Donald Trump is. We know he's a pathological liar. We know he uses other people's platforms to go on and blow up the platform and say a bunch of crazy stuff that's not true with a bunch of people standing around. We saw him do it in his first term, and I was there in the Oval Office when it happened with the HBCU presidents.
Yeah.
He used them as a prop. He used those Black folks as a prop to act like he was doing something for HBCUs, and they fell for the okie doke because they don't get the big picture. And as somebody who's worked in communications, you always have to be aware of what the big picture is. I also think there should be a push for some transparency. And again, as somebody who's worked in partisan politics and in journalism, I operate, for example, with a lot of transparency. I tell clients, I work for these people. They're all Democrats. This is what I did, etc. And NABJ in this moment should be transparent. If in fact they had a deal with the Trump administration that Harris Faulkner would be one of the panelists, they should say that. Because at this point, Fox News is not, to me, in the traditional sense, a news organization. It is a PR firm for the MAGA right. Everybody knows that. And so let's just get it on the the table that that was part of the deal of having the former president here, because truth protection should be the number one goal here, and particularly for the Black community. For us, it's even more paramount. And someone needs to speak to that at NABJ. And the fact that nobody speaks to these issues on a regular basis, I think is a little bit worrisome.
Tia, so I read that this event was pretty much sold out before the Trump announcement. So what is it that they are looking for? Again, I asked Lauren that question as far as what kind of answers they're looking for, that they know they're not going to get if they're looking for any transparency. But what was NABJ thinking here? So it couldn't have been about more attendance, maybe attention. Is it that?
Uh, well, I don't know. I wish I had a good answer other than maybe there was a, I don't know, somebody cut a check or whatever the situation, but I
That's where
don't,
I'm going.
because it is very befuddling. You know, I understand that Essence got a big boost. I was at Essence Festival when the VP came. I know there's been a gazillion calls with different coalitions jumping on to raise money for the VP. But to me, it's like, and the other thing too is, if it would be different. And also, you're doing this when Congresswoman Sheila Lee Jackson, I believe, is being laid to rest. So you're not getting, the VP is going to lend her support to that. So it's not even one of those things where, okay, today we're getting you know who, and then later on, before the convention ends, the VP is coming. Do you know what I mean? So then I would be like, okay, we are truly going to have both candidates. And if not, someone from her team who is, someone there, but it's not, we're not getting anything from the other side of what, and NABJ has been very vague. And to speak to Don's point, like, this is why voting in these elections is so important, including NABJ. A lot of you are scratching your head. A lot of you are unhappy, but you had an option. You had a different voice. And because you're
Yeah.
so caught up in the packaging that you totally dismiss someone who does have and address our concerns, who does understand what is going on. And once again, I would like to see Ken come and talk to an NPA at convention and really like listen to membership about what needs to be done to do a better job of supporting Black press, most importantly, Black owned press. Because,
Mm.
like you said, is when that whole thing was happening with the first debate, NABJ, where was their statement? Where was their advocacy on the ground? We're talking
Mhm.
Atlanta people. We're talking CNN. There should have been like, hey, we are coming to the building and somebody better have some seats for us. Point blank,
Mhm.
period. We don't want to hear that, well, we negotiate. Because if you're allowing Harris Faulkner into our building, we need to have the same type of energy when it comes to us getting the things that we need to do our jobs.
Dawn, as Greer mentions in the chat, it costs a lot to put these conferences on. They needed the money. Let's be honest. Last year, they spoke heavily about the cost of these conferences. We keep seeing that as an undercurrent here. Um, Look, just put it on the table, right? I mean, is this about money? Did Fox or the Trump campaign, did they cut a nice size check for NABJ?
I don't know. Like, we don't know. I think that's where that's the question for the people that need to protest, or that want to protest or that will protest, need to ask at the board meeting. That's a question where the funds, what are you receiving for the convention from these sponsors? Because also, if you look at the line of sponsors, some of these people have given to campaigns for the Republican Party as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's another conversation of transparency that we've raised on this entire call of, okay, now you've got the reaction. Now this is the fallout, right? Now you got to really be honest with your membership, because if you do not be honest with your membership and they find out on their own, all hell is going to break loose. And this also raises another thing for me, just being an NMPA worker, volunteer, because I came in the mist, thanks to Atlanta Voice. But it's one of the things that had bothered me over the past few years, and I've talked to you at nauseum, Stacey, as well as Greer, how frustrating it is to go to NABJ and there's no overt presence of an NPA there, or there's no intentionality to bring in NMPA members, especially in their host cities. Like, at least do that. Like, the bare minimum is
That part.
incorporating a lot of the host
Lauren
people.
got some thoughts on that, obviously.
And that frustrates me. So this brings up a whole slew of other questions that I would personally have. Just because, I mean, I told Lauren before the call started, my intentions were never to go to NABJ this year because of logistics. We're coming there at the beginning of August. We're then, majority of us are coming again 2 weeks later for DNC. So I was like, my kids are starting school. I'm gonna be at home. I want to sleep. But I have a whole nother organization that's bringing out, me and a few other journalists that are going to be a part of a panel for them on Friday. And I'm like, oh, well, phew, like that misses the whole, fiasco that's going to happen on Wednesday. But to me, my biggest concern is even though I'm not going to be there, I'm worried about the people who will be there. I'm worried about the people who are already, putting out their concerns and it's not being addressed. So if you are being paid or if money was handed over in order to make this decision, please tell us that now. Go ahead and tell us that now so we can get that out the way, and then it can be addressed at the board meeting a little bit further, and or we can start finding out more about creating more honesty and transparency in these leadership decisions. Because again, it wasn't just the political task force that did this. Yeah, Tia could jump up and say, I was on that call, I helped make that call, and it is what it is. But there are other people that work with her or in that space that need to be held accountable as well for how they're responding to this. And again, I'm gonna say this again because of my own personal relationship with Tia. I understand that she's coming from a more I don't think it's more like the both and. I think it's more so like we've extended these invitations to both sides every general election. So I can understand that. But the biggest thing that they could have done differently this go around was, and knowing that this man had twice before declined this invitation, was make sure that the membership had a right to vote in deciding on whether or not extending that invitation would have been a great thing this particular convention. I think if they would have utilized the membership's voice in something like this, I think that would have protected the organization from any other backlash they possibly could have gotten from the right. You get what I'm saying? Look at these Black journalists having this convention or a meetup, and they didn't invite our former president, future, candidate or what have you, to be a part of that convention. But I think that's the biggest thing that's missing. That connection. Since when has, and this is a long shot of a question, since when has leadership just outrightly just not listened to membership at all, right? Since when have they lost that connection or that relationship? Because yes, everyone is saying that this is a family reunion, but I don't go to family reunions looking for jobs.
I mean, it's
Wait a
also,
minute.
can we also talk about the safety issue? What Dawn has brought up, and I think for everybody on the ground, let's be 100% correct. There was an assassination attempt, not by our people, but by who. Number two is his cult members, and they are cult members, the MAGA crew. Those folks don't understand boundaries. They hear of him being there at our convention. You mean to tell me them folks ain't not going to flock down into Chicago and try to bully their way into convention? I do not want our members harmed. I don't want anybody talking to anybody out their neck. And again, I totally understand if you talk to me crazy and you try to put hands on me, then you have every right to defend yourself. I don't want there to be any opportunity for violence. What is being done? And as Dawn has said, 10-step real outreach to let members know this is what we're doing to protect you. And also the other folks, there are other events going to be going on. Not everybody's going to be inside the circus. There are going to be other events going on. What are you doing to protect them? Because certain brands, I'm guaranteeing you right now, are like, hold up, we did not sign up to have our brand associated with it. So there needs to be, Ken needs to jump on a call with membership and be like, hey, these are the things that we are doing to ensure your safety, X, Y, and Z. Because God forbid, I would hate for anybody to get hurt over this man.
Yeah, I see where Roland is tweeting that he says I see Tia is defending NABJ's decision. He says I could ask her questions, but she has me blocked. So y'all go ahead and retweet these. And but Takuma, Just did want to bring you in real quick before we close out. In Chicago, I mean, you're a member of both an NPA and NABJ, like Dawn and like Katia. What's going on in Chicago? What are they saying about this particular thing in Chicago?
So just, I'm not a member of NABJ currently, but what I will say is that on the ground, there's a lot of dissatisfaction over the decision. The safety concern that was raised is a huge issue because not only do we have NABJ going on here, Lollapalooza is also about to happen as well, and they're all going to generally be in the same area. And there's also been news now of a protest that will
Hmm.
occur tomorrow at 11:30, I believe. It was retweeted by my Black media colleague Morgan Elise Johnson from the Tribe in Chicago. So there is a virulent backlash among members of local Chicago media who are very aware of our city's particular history with Trump and how we've been manipulated and used as a dog whistle in 2016 to speak for him to speak to his malignant magna constituency.
Mm. Listen, I think we want to go around the table before we close out. Lauren, your final thoughts on this?
Lot to unpack there. First of all, I think the whole job fair thing is just corporate monetization. So we're doing job fairs because some set of media corporations is giving NABJ money for the job fairs. So nothing wrong with that. There's nothing terrible about job fairs. Again, just think all these things should just be out on the table. The thing that Tia said about we extended invites to both sides, I think, as everybody knows, the vice president is going to Sheila Jackson Lee's funeral in Houston. So she's missing the
Hmm.
convention. Very good reason. But this whole notion of we extended invites to both sides, to me, what you're really saying is that's just what we do each year. No, nothing to see here. No big deal. And that is a problem. And the reason that that's a problem is that it isn't an ordinary year. Okay. There's a lot to see here. We have someone running for president who wants to destroy democracy. Okay. It's not a normal year. This is not George W. Bush and John Kerry. This is not Barack Obama and John McCain. This is not a normal candidate. This is Donald Trump. Okay. And they are trying to wind the clock back. They are specifically targeting a lot of their policy at African Americans. This is an African American organization. We need to wake up from that. Okay. Oh, we extended invites, and this is just what we do. That's problematic. Okay. And I know Tia knows better. I know she's going to think about this later and say to herself, yeah, maybe that wasn't exactly how I wanted to say that. We don't live in a normal, moment here. We just don't. And he is not a normal candidate. And all of this sort of, giving seeding ground of the truth to him is a huge mistake. Now, maybe I'll be wrong, and hopefully, I'm thinking as I'm sitting here, I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that Harris Faulkner and particularly Rachel Scott, who I know, is going to bring it. Okay. I have no idea what the journalist from Semaphore is going to do. And I don't know how any idea why the journalist from Semaphore is on the stage, to be quite honest with you. But there should be some tough questioning of Donald Trump. This should not be an easy ride. It should be him almost running off the stage if it's done right. Okay. And I have a sneaking suspicion that that's not what is going to occur, but we'll see. I don't want to judge before seeing anything, and I don't want to judge NABJ before knowing all the facts. But what we're seeing and what we're hearing is not promising. Okay. Just in this
Right.
first round, in this first volley.
Well, and he doesn't answer questions, whether it's NABJ, NNPA, CBS, ABC, even
Right.
Fox. I mean, this guy doesn't answer questions. Katia, your final thoughts on this?
We need to do better. And your first allegiance, first and foremost, is to membership. Second and third, and absolutely, this should not have been done without Black press in the building, especially seeing it's Chicago. And I encourage everyone that's listening that is going to convention, show up to the board meeting. We pay these dues, have your voices be heard, but it can't be the usual suspect, because if it's only 4 or 5 the same people, they're never going to course correct. But if all of us show up and we have a respectful discourse and let them know that we did not appreciate that, then there can finally be some progress.
Yeah. Takuma.
I know it's tradition for NABJ to invite presidential candidates every year of the general election. But as it was said before, this is an unconventional candidate. This is an unprecedented candidate. And for someone who has a demonstrated history of being a racist, a sexist, and someone who's ultimately anti-human, they don't deserve the privilege, the shield of objectivity. There's no both sides here. There's no good people on both sides here. He should not be given this platform.
And before we get to who he calls the red bone, Power 96 says his final thought is that NABJ done messed up the church's money.
I
But
mean,
go
it
ahead,
messed up the
Tonya.
church's congregation too, you know what I'm saying? Quiet as kept. I just want to point out some things here because my colleagues on here have been very good at this conversation. I love that everyone has had a very calm tone and have been very professional on this particular call because our Twitter feeds look like a hot mess.
A
Okay.
hot mess. Yeah.
But to me, first and foremost, attendees that are showing up on Wednesday, get to your location as early as possible so that if there is a security issue, you can get through security easily and peacefully. Secondly, you can choose not to physically be in the room when this man is doing this. And you can go to the other panels that are happening. You can check your NABJ app to see what else is happening, or you can also choose just not to be in the building for the day. You know, that's also a choice as well. Number 3, I want to make sure that people understand that in no way is it Tia Mitchell who invited him personally to come to this convention, because I feel like, to Lauren's point, I feel like a lot of people think that she is saying she made the personal call versus a organizational call to make that happen. She's a reporter who serves at the White House on behalf of the AJC that comes out of Atlanta, right? Atlanta, Georgia. So let's be clear, because I think a lot of people are missing that little nuance there, right? Yes, she was the first person to jump up and say, I was a part of what made that happen, which there's a political task force, which means there are other people involved. So in that effort, number 4, if you are protesting that you're not going to be in the building, please be there on Saturday for the board meeting so that you can come up, you can put your question in, or you can raise your hand to be heard on Saturday, because there are other people that need to account for this versus taking the opportunity to cyber attack someone who just wanted to give more information towards this discourse, because clearly this organization as a whole was not prepared for the backlash of what's happening right now. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll see y'all Thursday evening. I'll be there on Friday, and some of the panels tiptoeing in and out. My panel is after hours. If y'all want something to eat, let me know. I'll let y'all know where I'm at. Thanks to Ed Choice. Shouts out to y'all for bringing me to Chicago. We will actually be talking about, this is a shameless plug, we will actually be talking about changing the narrative around educational choice. So I think that that's going to be something else, because a lot of people that I know within this space do not want to cover the other side of actual Black and brown people using educational choice and that being a successful thing for their children and their community. So yes, let me just raise that little shameless plug there. And I hope that people really take an opportunity to watch this clip again and again and again, and actually hear from people who generally we aren't necessarily centered in the NABJ conversation, because we are with NNPA, you know. And shouts out to NAPA for having this space for us, Black Press USA as well, because this is what we need. I know, you know, that it's important for us to always be at the forefront of a lot of these conversations, because I think a lot of times we have the freedom and the space to do so. So, and I know like a lot of people that are affiliated with whatever's going on with NABJ right now, they may not have that luxury. So shouts out to our space.
Yeah, Katia's going to be on a panel as
because we
well.
communicate over here.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And so, listen, the bottom line is we will see if he answers any questions. We will see. That's just not his MO. That's another reason why many believe that this is an exercise in futility, an exercise in stupidity, to even have him there because he just doesn't answer questions. And
Does anybody
the last
live
thing I'll
feed?
say,
Is there a
I'm
live
sorry,
feed?
Lauren.
Stacy, do you know if there's a live feed?
Yeah, I understand there will be a live feed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anthony Tillman said that there will be a
Yeah,
live
yeah,
feed.
there's gonna be a live feed. That's why I was trying to raise up the point of like, if you ain't got to be in the building between those few hours or time frame that he's gonna be there, at least just don't be in the building, right? You know what I'm saying? Or don't even go to it because you're gonna have access to it, or you can find it, or you can watch it somewhere else, but you don't have to be in the building. But also, I mean, that still doesn't excuse the fact that he's physically going to be in our space where we're going to be in all of the things. So yeah, that's frustrating there. Oh, look
Yeah.
at look at my panel, y'all. No, it's fine.
Oh,
And Katia's
Well,
on the panel, right? Correct? Yeah.
Yes, I'm on my panel is Joy, who is letting me moderate the Supremes or You Can Eat panel on Saturday. Come get some joy. After we done, having a very what I like to call a spirited debate. Come get some joy. We're gonna talk about this is a really good black movie, black director based on a black book, and the independent journalist, the panel that I helped put together, is going to be Friday at 9, and moderated by Brandon Pope, who is NABJ Chicago's president, where we talk about ways to navigate the
Yes.
field as independent journalists, freelance journalists, and hopefully giving some clues and some tips to help our journalists that are in the struggle right now. Thank you, Don.
awesome. Awesome. That's amazing, Katia.
Um, Stacy,
Awesome. Yes.
and speaking of panels, there will be an NABJ adjacent panel that I'll be a part of that's spotlighting Black media, centered around Black Chicago storytelling in the Black media, featuring myself, Johannes Lacour of the Invisible Institute, who won a Pulitzer for his podcast, Morgan Elise Johnson of The Tribe, Deanna Sherman of True Star Media, and it's going to be moderated by Natalie Moore. So we will have on Thursday, July 31st. I'm sorry, August 1st. Thursday at 11:30, we'll have a panel at Semicolon Bookstore, um, right downtown on the Magnificent Mile. Semicolon Bookstore is Black owned.
Yeah, y'all might
Okay.
see me because I
Well,
hope y'all got some
it
snacks.
looks like only Lauren and I don't have a panel, Lauren.
yeah, there's enough.
Well,
There's enough to do
that's
without
cool.
those going on. There's so much going on. It's not funny, but that's
Yeah.
great.
Well,
Sounds good.
and the last thing, again, like I was going to say, the last thing I'll say is this: the fact that you're going to have heightened security. That means more law enforcement, and let's face it. Let's face it. Anytime you mix law enforcement with people of color, there's always a chance that things can go left really quick. That's a problem, and I'll leave it at that. But Lauren, uh, thanks for joining me as the
Absolutely.
non-panelist on this panel. And congratulations, Dawn, Katia, and Takuma on your panels. I'm sure those will be highlights for the week.
Mhm.
We'll see what happens. Other than the whole former president's appearance, I'm sure that those will be the talk of the town. Thanks for joining. Let it be known, folks. We'll see you again tomorrow.